Hey everybody, this is Bryan Clayton, CEO of GreenPal, and in this episode of Business Growth Architect Show, I'm going to be talking about how I transitioned from a blue-collar entrepreneur to a tech entrepreneur, and I'm going to be talking about how it's okay to have imposter syndrome sometimes, and how I talk about how I had a little bit of imposter syndrome when I was starting GreenPal and how I dealt with that. So make sure you tune in to this episode.
Welcome to the Business Growth Architect Show. I am Beate Chelette. I am the host. I want to welcome you to our globally top 10% ranked podcast, where you will hear from industry experts about the strategies that are working right now to unlock hidden opportunities in any market so that you can grow your authority and scale your impact. And now let's get started with the show.
Welcome back, everyone. This is your host, Beate Chelette, and today I'm talking to Bryan Clayton from GreenPal. And our topic today is around a transformation as a business owner, because it's not always what you start your business with that ends up to be the big idea. Bryan, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Well, it's great to be on your show. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. So, Bryan, let's dive right in. So, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do right now, and then we'll talk about the transformation journey and why it's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah. So today I'm CEO, co-founder of a company called GreenPal. GreenPal is a mobile app that works like Instacart or DoorDash or Uber, but for lawn care services. So if you have a lawn that you need to get mowed, if you rent a house or own a house, you have grass that needs to be cut. Rather than calling all over the place, trying to get somebody to take care of it for you, you just download GreenPal, you pop your address in, and someone comes out and does the lawn for you. And we've been at this for around 10 years. I guess you could say we're a 10-year overnight success. And now we're nationwide in the United States with around 300,000 people using the app to get weekly lawn mowing.
One of the things you and I talked about when we first started out is how it started and what it ended up being. Will you take us through the many different jobs or businesses you ran until that business became the business it is today?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things if you are an aspiring founder is to just get started doing something. Just get in the game, start putting in the reps of what it means to run a business, whether it be copywriting or marketing or sales or operations, or all these things you got to learn to run a small business. I think if you can get that momentum going, then you can kind of create luck and serendipity. And that's kind of how it was for me. My first business was a lawn care company. I started mowing grass in high school as a way to make extra money and stuck with this little lawn mowing business for around 15 years, growing it little by little, year over year, and grew it to around 150 employees and 8 figures a year in revenue. And I sold that company because I had another idea. About year 13, 14, I started noticing what Uber was doing for ride sharing. And, at that point in time, Grubhub was just getting started for food delivery. And I thought somebody is going to build a platform that works like Grubhub or Uber, but for this service that I'm doing. And so I sold the company, and then I started pursuing the idea of GreenPal, where you should be able to push a button and someone comes and mows the yard for you. So where I started with just me and a push mower, where I am today running a tech business that's nationwide in the United States with hundreds of thousands of people using it, are very, very different. But if I hadn't started mowing my first yard, I never would be where I am today. So I think the key is just to get started, start working on something, make some goals, and knock those down and just keep the momentum going.
Not everybody's going to be as successful at this first idea as you are. So some people are going to start with the idea because I think there's two things at work. There's one where you take something and you build it and then you sell it and then the next idea comes. But sometimes you try to build something and then it doesn't work, or it doesn't work that well, or it's not as successful as you think it should be, and then you have to change. What's your experience with these two kinds of pieces? Or is it just that I'm assuming that it was that easy for you this entire time?
It's a really good question. No, and none of it is easy. And so I think I understand your question is how do you know that you can scale something? How do you know you can build something that can touch the mass market? And I think it's important to day one kind of begin with the end in mind. Do you want to build something that is going to have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers? Do you want to build something that could potentially get to 9 figures a year in revenue? And if you do, then it's important to select a type of business where you could grow it to become that. And so, for example, my first business, a landscaping company, I had grown it to over 100 people, 90 trucks going out every day, but that was kind of the plateau in my market that I could grow it to. I couldn't grow it to hundreds of thousands of customers. I knew that I needed to shift into a technology-based business in order to do that. So I kind of had to restart and sell the company and start from scratch, but with the learnings that I had learned and observed in the industry, that to a technology space. So if you want to build something that can touch the mass market, that can have hundreds of thousands of users, I think it's important to pick an idea that could scale. And so if you're a photographer, maybe you start off as a photographer and then you end up building a marketplace for photography, kind of like what we've built. And that's kind of a way to get into the game, so to speak. But the interesting thing is that the paradox is, once you start with that idea that you believe could scale, that you believe could touch hundreds of thousands of customers, you have to do it the hard way first. You have to hand crank it. You have to kind of do it in such a way that it doesn't scale. You have to, like if you were running a photography marketplace, maybe you're running around fulfilling all the orders and you're kind of emulating that if you had multiple suppliers on the network. You're hand cranking it behind the curtain almost. So it's a weird thing that trips up a lot of new founders, that they want to build something that can scale to hundreds of thousands or millions of customers, and then they just want to go straight to the scale part. It's a weird thing. You kind of have to go through the hand cranking piece for a year, 2, 3 years until you can figure out what to scale.
So there's some good ideas in here that I want to spend a little bit more time on. So you're absolutely correct, is that there is often not enough patience to let the thing do the thing.
That's right. Yeah.
Until it comes to full fruition. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah. And you have to hand crank the thing for a while. You got to hand crank it to know what the thing needs to be. That's the thing. That's the part that a lot of founders get tripped on. They don't want to do the hand cranking piece. They want to go straight to the scaled product that's serving thousands of people, and it just doesn't work that way.
So let's talk about hand cranking here. What is exactly hand cranking? How would you describe that to somebody who is now, let's say, maybe they're 250, maybe they're 500, and they want to get to break the 1 million? Because we know it makes more fun once it's at 250,000 and up, because then some of the stress goes away from paying the bills, because then you should be able to pay the bills. How do you hand crank the part? Does it mean it's like crazy work? Is it crazy hours? How would you describe it to someone?
Yeah, so there's 2 different ways I'll attack that question. So the first is, you have to hand crank when you just have an idea and you have nothing. So you don't have $250,000 a year in revenue yet. You've got 0 revenue. And the mistake that a lot of new founders make is that they just want to sit behind the laptop and work on the technical side of it, and they don't want to get out into the real world and hustle up their first customers. So some examples of hand cranking would be, with our platform, GreenPal, we passed out flyers all over Nashville, Tennessee, where we're from, to hustle up our first 1,000 customers. And then I personally mowed hundreds of yards that were getting orders on the system. And then I had a couple of friends that I would contract up to fill in where I couldn't do it. And so for the first year, it was us hustling up customers and then us kind of fulfilling the orders. And it was done with spreadsheet, pen and pad, and phone calls. And, to the customer, they had one nice, delightful interface they interacted with. But behind the scenes, we were kind of like a duck, calm on the surface, but below the surface, we were just paddling away, trying to hand crank the orders. And this is how most successful tech companies kind of get started. Instacart is a good example for grocery delivery. They went to their local grocery store and took digital photos of every single item in the store. They bought one of every item and they took photos of it, of them in their apartment. And then anytime somebody orders something, they would run to the grocery store, buy the groceries, and then go deliver them. Tinder is another good example. Tinder, their first network was in Southern California, and they would throw parties at I think it was UCLA. And to get into the party, you had to download Tinder. And so that's how they got their first 1,000 users onto the network. So you have to hand crank those first few 100 or 1,000 people using the platform. Then as time goes on, let's say you get to a couple 100,000 in revenue, 500,000 in revenue, million in revenue, you still have to kind of test and then invest. And what I mean by that is like you're figuring out what's working by doing it yourself as the founder, and then you're delegating based on that. A lot of times founders will try to delegate stuff when they don't know how to do it themselves. So if you're stuck at $250,000 a year in revenue, you probably don't have a marketing machine going. And so maybe you might be tempted to go hire an SEO agency or hire a Facebook marketing company or hire a Google AdWords company. And you don't really know how that stuff works. You've never really done it yourself, and you haven't taken the time to learn it. You haven't taken the time to understand what goes into it and what success looks like. And therefore, it never really works out because you're delegating from a standpoint of abdication, which is like, you handle this. I don't know how it works. And it usually doesn't work out. So you have to go back and hand crank it. You got to learn how to pop up a Facebook campaign. You got to learn basic copywriting. You got to learn basic ad design and run it yourself for a while. Then you will know how to delegate and how to get somebody else in there to handle it better than you can. And so it kind of almost never ends. And as time goes on, as you're growing your business, you're nailing it and then scaling.
Bryan, what you just told me is that I really have to pay attention to understanding the pieces of my business that need to get off the ground for me then to go to that next level. Yeah, I heard you loud and clear. So you said, if you cannot identify the problem on why you don't have enough clients, basically, then you cannot fix that, and then you'll never get to that next level. So let's say I figured it out. Let's say I now listen to the Business Growth Architect show, to this interview, and I'm like, Bryan is right. I have no idea how to get clients. I'm going to figure out the Facebook ads, Google ads, SEO, the marketing piece. I have figured out how to get in my clients. Now there is a metamorphosis of the business because now at a different level, different things have to happen. How do I know when it's time to change? Because people then want to continue over and over and over again with what they've done already. So give me some insights. And when did you know that you mowing the lawn then led you to bringing more people in to mow the lawns? And then I'm sure at one point you didn't mow any more lawns and you were running the company. And then you brought in other people. And then you're like, well, that's not big enough. Now we need to get out of Tennessee to the neighboring states, to all of the United States. What are these markers, and are those markers clear?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a couple different ways that I think about this, especially looking back on 22 years of building one business, selling it, and now my second company, GreenPal. So the first thing is, one of my favorite books about this kind of stuff is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And one of the things he talks about in that book is going through the exercise of building an org chart for your business, even if it's just you and you're a solo founder and it's you like doing 20 different jobs. Build an org chart. So who is the founder? Who is the CEO? Who is chief of accounting? Who's head of customer service? Who is head of marketing? Who is head of R&D? Who's head of all of these different roles in the business? And it's going to be your name on every single one of those roles. And then as time goes on and you start to build a little bit of revenue, you can then start to peel your name off some of these roles and begin to delegate those roles to a specialist, a subcontractor, a freelancer, or employee to take that off of your plate and focus on it and do it better than you can or could because you don't have the bandwidth. And at least now, because you've done it in your spare time, you kind of know what success looks like. You kind of know what you're looking for when you hire that person. Whereas if you hadn't done it, you have no idea. You're just kind of operating on luck and faith, and that's not a good way to get a business started. So that's one way I think about it, and it's kind of fun because as time goes on, you can see this org chart, and it's like, man, it used to be my name on all of these roles, and now I've got a team of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 people working on this project with me. So that's a very satisfying part of the journey. The second thing I think about and the way I look at it is when you're running a business, especially when you're starting out, you're doing 3 things at once at all times. So you're working in the business. So in the photography example, you're taking the pictures. The second thing is you're working on the business. What does my marketing strategy look like? How do I make sure customers are satisfied? How do I make sure that the customers that used me last week will refer me? How do I make sure I'm getting the best deals on supplies and so on? What does the bookkeeping system look like? What does the pricing system look like? So I know I'm making good margin. So I'm working on the business. And then the third thing is I'm working on myself. So what books am I reading? What podcasts am I listening to? What is the block and tackling for this stage of the game that I need to be good at? So in the early days, a lot of it has to do with sales and marketing. So you, the founder, you got to get good at that. You've got to learn, okay, is this a direct sales thing? Do I need to learn how to do one-on-one sales very well? Or is this something that's more self-serve and I need to learn how to get traffic to a website? What are the levers I need to be pulling and how do I learn how to do that? So, and in the early days, I think, okay, Monday through Friday in the business, Saturday on the business, Sunday on myself. And maybe that's the first year or two until you get to maybe 100 or 200K in revenue. And then as time goes on, you want to be building a team around you so you don't have to be in the business so often. So maybe accumulate like 2 or 3 days a week in the business, 2 or 3 days a week on the business, maybe 1 or 2 days a week on yourself. And then as time goes on, you can invert those. So ideally you get to a point where most of your time is on the business. Very little of it is in the business, and the rest of your free time is on yourself. So that's how I think about it. And how do you know exactly when to make those calls? A lot of it is intuition. When you can see you're leaving money on the table because you are like an individual contributor in the business and you're doing a lot of like hand cranking on it, and you're losing out on money because you can't get to all of these sales. You can't get to all of the calls that are coming into the front desk. And so that's one way to look at it, is like, okay, am I leaving money on the table by doing a lot of this stuff myself? Now it's time for me to delegate it to somebody who can focus on it.
I love that. And we will be right back after this quick message.
Are you looking for the hidden opportunities for you in this market? Or are you simply wanting to figure out what is your unique differentiation factor that makes clients want to work with you and not your competitors? If this resonates, I want to invite you to go to uncoverysession.com and schedule your 15-minute complimentary uncovery session with one of our business growth advisors that will take you through what your number one business growth blocker is, what you can do to remove it, and what your very best next step should be. And now let's get back to the show.
Welcome back. Beate Chelette here with Bryan Clayton from GreenPal, talking about business owner transformation. We just spoke about the transformation of the business, and what I liked about it is that you said it's not just the transformation of the business, but it's also me as a person. This touches on something that people that do a lot of mindset work or understand the laws of, abundance and prosperity and the law of attraction really understand. So if we look at the transformation for me as a business owner, how do I transform myself into that business owner that needs to lead that kind of company? Because I also see a lot in my work, Bryan, is that business owners believe that what got them here will get them anywhere. Is that true or false?
So if you're doing business with everything you got, you're throwing your heart and soul into it, and you're working the 3 buckets, like I mentioned earlier, in the business, on the business, and on yourself, you will look back every year or two and you'll be a totally new person. You will be almost unrecognizable to yourself. You won't like the same things. You won't have the same taste in books or movies. It's really weird. It's like you evolve and become a more mature, wiser person as you grow a business. One of the most humbling things you can do with your life is start a small business. And so if you don't feel that, then there's a chance you're not giving it everything that you have. And there's a chance that the what you got you here won't get you there is going to blow up in your face, because you, like every business, reaches the bottleneck of the founder's capabilities. And so you should always feel like you're ahead of your skis. You should always feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. The last 22 years have been like that for me. I was, through my 20s, growing my first company, and at any given time, I felt like I was not suitable to be doing what it was I was doing. I didn't have the leadership or the management acumen. And so I had to kind of like backfill that and take and learn those skills and seek out mentors and figure out what my leadership style was. And then, like now with GreenPal, I'm managing a business that's doing multiple 8 figures a year in revenue. I've never done that before. So that's a little uneasy. And managing a P&L that big, I'm having to seek out people that are smarter than me that have done that before and then some, and learn from them and actually go back to school and take classes on things that I might have missed the first time around. If you're throwing everything you've got into the business, you should feel like you aren't suitable for the level of the game you're at, and then you kind of grow into that.
That is actually really great advice. And it's the opposite of what we often talk about, because people try to get out of imposter syndrome as quickly as possible because it makes them feel so uncomfortable. And you say, well, this is a really good thing. You're on the right path if you're feeling that. It's the opposite of what we're hearing.
Absolutely. It's a good sign that you're in the right place. It's a good sign that you're pushing it. It's a good sign that you're expanding into things that make you feel uncomfortable. Because if you feel totally comfortable and at ease with the business, then you're not pushing it hard enough, and you're not growing it fast enough. Now, if you want to run a small business, and you just want to live the good life, that's fine. But if you want to run a big business and scale a big company, then you should always feel a little bit anxious about it and a little bit not at ease. I think the Mario Andretti quote is if
you're not going fast enough, you're
if you feel too comfortable, you're not going fast enough. I think.
If you exactly. I love that. I love that quote, because
it goes for business.
I actually just watched a documentary on mindset of Formula One drivers.
Yeah,
and it basically said that the mind is the athlete, the body is the means.
Darn right. And the same goes for business. And that's one of the things I love about business is, I'm never going to be a Formula One driver. I'm never going to be a professional athlete. I'm never going to be a great musician or singer, but I can throw everything I've got into a business and compete at that level. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. All you got to have is your will and hard work, and just the ability to become a problem-solving machine and to be relentless about it, and you can compete at that Formula One level.
I love that. How do you overcome the fear? I mean, from everything that you're saying, let's just be real here. I mean, you have to have had many oh shit moments in this.
Many sleepless nights, yes. With my first company and my second company, GreenPal, many sleepless nights. Where there's something as simple as not being able to make payroll. I've been there and lived through that. It's not something you want, but a lot of times, a lot of small business owners have to go through that and figure out, okay, how did I screw up? How do I not have enough cash in the bank to make payroll tomorrow? And so that's a oh crap moment. And it does go back to if you're not feeling that and it's super easy and super comfortable, then you aren't pushing it hard enough. And the thing that scares me more than anything is fast forwarding like a year or 2 years ahead, and I'm in the same place I'm in today. Same amount of sales, same amount of headcount, same amount of customers, and the business is stalled. That scares me more than like, oh crap, our platform is starting to go down because we have too many customers on it. That's a good problem to have. A really terrifying problem is a year from now we're stalled out and we can't figure out how to grow the business. That scares me more than anything, and that scares me to take action today to figure out, okay, how do we keep this thing going? How do we keep the engine humming? So kind of like the fear of not achieving growth and our goals is scarier than anything.
What would you say to somebody who is in that position? First, they had to undergo dramatic changes during COVID. They finally figured out the new business model. Then everything changed again. Now we are technically not in a recession, but there are some economic challenges, and people definitely are tighter on this money spend or thinking about their purchases more thoroughly than they did before. This last year was a humbling year. What do I do now? What would you say?
A lot of the hardest part of running a business of any size is sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards. And that sucks. It's not fun, whether it's laying off a few employees or a lot of employees or getting rid of business lines that you no longer want to service, or getting rid, like for our app GreenPal, getting rid of a feature that we may have spent a year building. Yeah, that's just painful. But a lot of times the hard decision and the correct one are the same. So if you can remind yourself of that, it can kind of help you through these tough times, and just understand that the line from getting started to ultimately what success looks like is not straight. You're going to go backwards in order to go forwards. And we may be in a period where that's required. You may have to get rid of some overhead. You may have to trim up the burn a little bit. You may have to get rid of some people that you hired that you don't necessarily need anymore. And that's painful, but that's what makes it valuable, and that's what makes it rewarding. And then the other thing I'll say is my first company, I had to take it through the 2008 financial crisis. And at the time, that was really, really hard. I had like 100 some odd people. And at a certain point, we didn't need that many people. So I had to lay off a bunch of people, and it was really painful. But in a weird way, 5 years later, I was glad it happened, because that forced me to make a lot of improvements into the business. It forced me to trim out a lot of fat out of the business. If you can kind of remind yourself of, okay, I'm having to go backwards a little bit. I'm having to tighten up a little bit, retrench the business a little bit. But in 5 years, I'll be glad this happened, because 9 times out of 10, you are. And every bad thing that I've ever gone through in 22 years of business, 3 or 4 or 5 years later, I was glad I went through it. You'll become a better founder, and the business will be better for it.
I love that. And what a great way for us to end this interview. Bryan, for somebody who now maybe wants to get their lawn mowed, or learn more about you, or their gutters cleaned, or their leaves blown, or their snow plowed, where would we send them?
Yeah, anybody that doesn't want to waste time doing your own lawn maintenance, just go to greenpal.com and sign up. You get free quotes.
Excellent. Wonderful. And I'm very grateful for you to have been here and to share with us that business ownership does go through transformation, and it is okay to feel imposter syndrome, which I have never heard anybody say but you. So that's definitely something valuable to bring to our audience, to say, if you need to sit in discomfort, may as well enjoy it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I really enjoyed it. Great interview.
Thank you so much, Bryan, for being here. And that is it for us for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching or listening to the show. Please make sure you share this episode with one other person who may be suffering from what they think incurable imposter syndrome, because we just can give them a little bit of advice today that might just help them to feel better about where they are in their journey. And that's it for us today. And goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to or watching the show. We are so excited that you're here, and we are very grateful for you. Now it's our turn to ask you for help. Please do share this episode with one other person that needs to hear what we were talking about today. If there's any question you have about business, please do reach out to us and let us know. And don't forget to schedule your complimentary uncovery session at uncoverysession.com, where one of our business growth advisors will help you to figure out what your number one business growth blocker is in only 15 minutes. And that's it for us today. Until next time.